Hi everybody, welcome to Climate Crunch, the channel all about the planet, people, and gaining fresh perspectives on all things climate change. Despite the headlines about everything being Norsed and doomed, we're here to discuss real-world climate stories and provide some grounded optimism. Whether your hero is Greta Thunberg, Donald Trump, Extinction Rebellion, or the Tiger King, or you're new to the pod, welcome. We've got you covered, so keep listening.
Hello everyone, this is Paulina from Climate Crunch. Welcome to episode 3 of our podcast series. Today we are going to talk about the storytelling of climate change outside of the mainstream, so concentrating on feminist and non-Western voices. I hope you'll enjoy. Climate change storytelling, as mentioned in previous episodes, is a way of showing the story of climate change through different lenses, through different points of view. Why is it important though? Well, Peter Dodds, professor of mathematics and statistics from the University of Vermont, calls contemporary humans homo narrativus, because to make sense of the world, we look for the shapes of meaningful narratives in everything. However, in the mainstream climate change debate, we tend to stick to the Western scientific narrative of the issue. What are the effects of that? Well, by only being shown raw data and mathematical modeling, without that human element, we become desensitized both to how climate change will impact lives of the future generations, but also how right now it impacts the lives of vulnerable populations around the world. This is why we need to bring to the table more personal accounts of climate change witnesses, such as the voice from marginalized groups, especially women and indigenous people. As Mary Robinson, in her superb book, Climate Justice, a Man-Made Problem with a Feminist Solution says, in order to tackle an issue of the climate change in a just and equitable way, it is essential to amplify the voice of the marginalized. She brings the accounts of indigenous groups activists who warned about climate change decades before the scientific community started raising concerns on the international stage. She talks about political leaders from small and developing states whose countries not only are currently most vulnerable to effects of climate change, but are facing the imminent demise of their homeland. By showing those alternative narratives, we can change our harmful economy-based, desensitized attitude of current climate deals and understand why it is pivotal to take drastic climate action not in 20 years' time or in a decade, but right here, right now.
Hi Paulina, thank you so much for that little introduction there. Welcome to the pod. I was very interested to hear what you had to say about climate justice. And the book by Mary Robinson sounds fascinating. Could you kind of explain in more depth what climate justice is and why it's needed in the West?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me, Will. Climate justice is a concept which is not widely known, and it totally should be, because for decades now it's part of the Conference of the Parties, and it kind of runs parallel to that. So in the easiest way possible, climate justice is just inviting the marginalized voices to the table to just go beyond, the powerful countries who have a lot of money, mostly in the West, who prioritize their economic well-being over the well-being of the planet. So Mary Robinson does exactly that. She amplifies the voices of those marginalized, either bringing climate change witnesses, as I said in my introduction, who are saying, oh, we've been on this land for thousands of years, so we see that the weather patterns are changing and the climate is changing. And then some of the voices from within the West, but who are usually excluded from the mainstream media. Then on top of that is SIDS, so small island developing states, which are facing an existential threat right now. And so it is also important to know those other narratives to change how we perceive climate change from within the media we have access to in the West.
I mean, don't you think that when getting to designing these international policies at somewhere like COP26 in Glasgow, wouldn't a more objective Western point of view be, sort of more effective than a sort of emotional and personal account of affected communities? What's your view on that?
Well, that would be illogical, wouldn't it? That you think that, objective, it should be better because you're not swayed one way or the other by your emotions. But how we look at the recent decades, ever since Kyoto in 1997, that objective way did not really work out because countries do not care about the international well-being they first and foremost care about their economic growth. And in my opinion, and the opinion of the activists of the climate justice, by seeing people who are already affected by climate change, so those climate change witnesses I just mentioned several times already, it brings it more home. So you see, oh, we will be at that place in several decades. So by being more objective, we're desensitizing ourselves from seeing their point of view and seeing the importance of climate action, that we may now prioritize economic interest. But in the end, no matter how much money we have, it won't save the planet.
Do you then think in a sort of a different scenario, in a future scenario, if we do manage to overcome this distance that the West have created between, Western countries and developing countries, if they were to change this priority maybe of economic growth, do you think that a climate change crisis situation would be worse if economies were sort of more unsettled and a sort of less stable economic order? And would that then actually have the converse effect of impacting developing countries more, the ones that are most vulnerable?
The question of economy is the one we have to answer, because the countries fight for it and they say, oh yeah, if we don't have strong enough economy, how possibly can we use renewable resources, which in majority of the cases are very costly technologies? Then we have another topic, which is the right development. So the developing states arguing that they were denied their own industrial revolution, so they should be granted now. But that's a topic for a completely different podcast, because you could talk about that for hours. So yeah, coming back to your point, yes, economic growth is important, but at the same time, what price tag do we put on human life? Because right now those communities are affected, and they will only be more and more with every passing year, up until we pass the tipping point. So the solution that some of the people argue for, and I would personally support, is to divert the existing wealth into those renewable resources, technologies, and supporting the developing countries in their sustainable development goals, both when it comes to the private sector of the international corporations and a public sector of international intergovernmental help.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. It was great to have you on the pod, and I hope we can catch up with you soon.